Oh my gosh, Kate. Can I tell you what I ate last night? I had some of the best risotto I think I've ever had. So I'm not a big fan of eating risotto in restaurants because I generally find it's not really cooked well. It's generally, as you know, overcooked, super mush, or undercooked. But I had the best risotto that was perfectly cooked. It had shrimp, asparagus, clearly a lot of salt, clearly a lot of butter. And I think I forget the cheese, but I think it had a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And then I got it with a side of roasted vegetables. And what I love about this restaurant where I go is they know how to cook their vegetables correctly. They cook them all separately, so they're all cooked perfectly, you know? They just have that great amount of crunch. Oh, it was so good.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, I was really happy that I made such decent choices.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mine was like a poor man's risotto in some senses because it didn't have all the goodness, but it was a lentil quinoa pilaf.
Nice.
So I make the lentils separately with some thyme and onion and garlic in there, and then I make the quinoa. I use red quinoa with some carrot, celery, and shallot and stock. And then you put it all together with some cauliflower that you toast in coconut oil and some almonds and parsley. And it is like a power food. It's one of those foods that makes me feel like Popeye after I eat it. There's something about that combo of lentils, quinoa, and cauliflower that my body just loves.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Yay for us.
Yay for us.
Welcome and hello. So here's the deal, you guys. Our plan for this recording session was to record our episode on stress and weight, which we are actually thinking to table for right now, and we will get to it next time because we record these a little bit in advance, as you'll figure out from the time register and everything. But what happened is that a couple of hours ago, we learned that Prince died. And we've both been so deeply affected by that we don't want to record the regular session because we're just deeply affected by that. And we're surprised by how affected by that we are. And we normally have a plan when we record these episodes. We actually, even though it might not appear that we do, we really do. We do have
have a plan.
We do. We have a planning meeting. We do research and everything. But this is not. This is just, we thought we'd see what happened. And if it's a total disaster, you'll never hear this. And so that's how it goes. But we want to just talk for a little bit about what we're feeling and what's going on and see how we might actually end up wrapping it into our POV is what they call it, which means point of view, which is
classic, Catherine.
Yes, exactly.
Can you repeat that for our listeners in case they didn't get it the first time?
POV, point of view, or some might call it a brand. But
or I like to be in a meeting and ask, "What's your pa?"
It makes you look super cool.
And professional.
Exactly. So we don't know if this is going to have anything to do with the podcast or not, but we just need to have the conversation. So we thought we'd see what happens if we record it and consider sharing it with you.
I was just thinking, I was in Safeway and I was very excited because I was busy shopping for this weekend where I'm going out of town. So I was in there trying to buy really fun stuff, cheeses and blah blah blah, and
because it's your sister's birthday. To be clear,
my sister's birthday. Happy birthday, Helen!
Happy birthday, Helen!
And some woman just runs through the store crying, wailing down the produce aisle, and I was like, "What is that about?"
Wow!
Because I live in a bit of a sketchy neighborhood, so you never know if it's like Al Qaeda. But then someone just shouted that Prince had died in the store. It was so weird, and I was really caught off guard. And then I just started listening because there were other people in the store that literally were just stopping and crying, and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. I don't think I've ever been part of something like this where I've heard that someone's died and this is the reaction.
Yeah, I happened to log on to Facebook and I saw two posts in a row. One just said, "Oh crap." And, sometimes people just put that on Facebook and it's like, oh, okay, they want us to ask them what happened or whatever, Right. So I didn't really think anything of it. But it's not the kind of person that normally does that. So I was like, huh. And then the one beneath it just said, no, 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 no. And I was like, uh-oh, something went down. So then I'm like, well, how do I find out? What do people do to find this out? And then luckily somebody put a comment on one of them about TMZ. And I was like, okay, okay, I'm going to go to TMZ, which I'm embarrassed to report I had to go to for my news. But I guess they broke it, though, right? Like, they were, I think, the first ones to report it before it was official. And then I figured it out. And I mean, I don't really know why this is true, but I'm really surprised by how affected I was. I had goosebumps that wouldn't go down for an hour. I cried for like an hour, not like sobbed, but like I just couldn't sort of stop weeping. And it's not like I'm a huge like Prince fan even, really. I mean, I certainly have an amazing love for his work and respect for his work, and some of the most important events of my life have been accompanied by a soundtrack of his. But it's not like some friends who I know are really devoted, and yet it was a really deep thing. And I think that's kind of what this conversation is partly about, is like, what is that? What's so deep about that beyond just the music?
Yeah. I mean, now that I've had time to think about it, again, as I said, I was really caught off guard by it, how I felt. And then the more I've been able to sit with it, I think it just comes down to this fact that he was definitely a part of my life growing up, right? Like, he definitely provided a soundtrack to both of our lives, because obviously we're of the same age. But then I just think there's this other thing that I always felt about him. Like, I just felt like he was a real artist.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I just felt like I knew that years ago. And his music was real and it was honest. It wasn't always the most successful, right? It wasn't always everything that was going to be played on TV. But and here's the thing, I always remember being moved by his music, regardless of what it is or what it was.
When Purple Rain came out, I was in high school, and I thought the whole thing about him being a sex symbol at that point was a joke. I was
Totally.
not awakened enough to find him sexy in high school. I thought he was silly. I thought he was a silly little tiny man, and I didn't understand why people thought he was sexy at the time when I was, because I was immature, and so I didn't get it. And then as my life grew, it obviously changed. But I agree with you. And it's the same thing with like David Bowie a few months ago, right? Like that was another huge impact for me that surprised me.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about the being an artist thing.
I was going to say, this is off the track, but when I was in Chicago, when Kate and I got to go to like a David Bowie, it was at a bar. It was just where they played all of his songs.
Yeah.
And we danced and we drank, and it was just really great. They played video clips, and one of the first thoughts I have is, oh God, if this happens for Prince, I hope it's in Chicago when I'm with Kate. That would be so fun and awesome.
Get on a plane right now. Turn your mic off and go.
As we say, people do this. People do hop on planes.
I know.
But yeah, I was going to go back, going back to high school, one of the things that really stuck out with me was this whole idea, was his whole sense of androgyny that he had. And I didn't really realize it then. At the time, I'm gay, right? And I'm still in the closet. So there was all that rumor, like all those years, everyone thought he was just gay because of the way he dressed and his heels and his makeup and all that stuff. So even though he wasn't gay, for me, I was like, it's like this little, oh my God, there's someone who's being different. There's someone who's really expressing this feminine side of himself, and he's just doing it so beautifully. He's doing it so publicly. He's doing it so confidently. And regardless of what people said, he just kept doing it. And it was really a sense of inspiration to me early on, because I'm like, wow, people can do it. I get it. People can be who they are. And so I think that's the other reason I had this huge sort of reaction today, because he was really one of the first symbols I had that I associated in my mind in that way, aside from Martina Navratilova. But, what are you going to do with that one?
I just love that you just brought Martina Navratilova up with Prince. That's lovely. I'm sure she would be delighted.
It's important to develop talents as you age, Kate, and I'm working on it.
That's lovely. Yeah, absolutely. And the opening and the I don't even know what to call it, but like the awareness that I think he brought, similar interestingly to David Bowie, right? Like similar, some similar themes there in terms of opening our perspectives. And certainly, and I think for me also, there's a nostalgic element, and for people in our age bracket, there's a nostalgic element because this was high school and then into college and then subsequently. And Purple Rain has accompanied some very significant elements in my life up until just a few years ago, the most recent one. I mean, it still is a soundtrack to important things for me. And I still don't entirely understand why I'm so affected, given that I don't put Prince music on necessarily when I'm cleaning the house. I don't, I always love dancing to his stuff. And yet I think it is that thing you talk about the artistry. I think there's something so extraordinary about his combination of talent and skill, which is my favorite combination, talent and skill.
And remember, this is a guy that learned to play just about every instrument, that there was. He was immensely talented, and he could bring so much to his music. And he could also bring so much to all the other artists he worked with and and produced and really brought to the forefront. Even one of my favorites, remember when he introduced the world to Sheila E.?
Yes, remember Sheila E? Of course.
She was so hot.
Yeah, totally.
And I remember, again, when I was younger, I was like, wow, she's so cool. She's so hot. I'm oddly attracted to her, but I don't think I'm supposed to be.
Because I mostly like the boys.
Exactly. But look at her. She can drum.
Exactly. Hence Prince's mystery to me at that time, although I was not attracted to him then. It took a while before I figured out how attractive he was. I guess vision would be the thing to add to that then. It's talent, skill, and vision. I mean, that's a triumvirate that's
And those things
impressive.
Are always attractive, right?
Yeah.
They're very alluring. They really draw you in.
Totally. And you know what this makes me think of? Bear with me, because this is going to seem like it might be a leap. But try to remember, Rick, a whole year ago or whenever it was.
Okay, Kate, I'm putting on my glasses. Hold on.
When we saw Neil Patrick Harris in Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yeah.
And it was that experience of feeling like, for me, like I had seen somebody in their prime doing the work that they were put on this earth to do. And I feel like that was the case with Prince. That was the case with David Bowie. Like they really artistically lived their best lives. They really did the work that they were put here or that they came here to do and really did it well. And I think maybe one of the reasons that, oh my God, I don't even want to say the end of this sentence, but I think maybe one of the reasons that it's so powerful is I'm not sure that I'm really doing that. I don't know that I don't feel like I'm living up to my potential. I don't feel like I'm really doing all the work that I'm put here to do. And I think maybe these guys trigger that for me.
Echo, 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 echo. See what I did there? Yeah, I feel the exact same thing. And do you remember after that performance? I remember so clearly when the curtain came down, because we went to see Hedwig and the Angry Inch together with Kate's mom.
Yeah.
That the curtain came down. I just looked over, and both of us are just sobbing, staring with our jaws open, because we were so profoundly moved by what an artist had done. And I agree with you. I'm not doing like the thing that I feel I was put here to do. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of what this podcast is for me.
Yeah, I was about to say that. This is part of that for us, I think, is part of what we're supposed to do, is to work together and to do things with the people, whatever that is.
With the people. And on a basic level about why we started talking about this subject material is because I feel like part of my work on this planet is to figure out this food thing for me. It's a big thing. It's one of my things, right? So there's the artist thing that we have going on, because we've, Kate and I have always been involved in artistic projects since day one. We met in the middle of an artistic project. And we've always been that way. And so this is that whole thing of like, I just feel like I'm still continuing to work something out and using this podcast to do it.
Yeah, totally. And there's that thing similarly, that there's that artistic element, and then I think beyond that, part of what I always feel drawn to do has to do with living my best life and being the best version of myself and helping other people do that is why I do a lot of, this doesn't come up much on the podcast, but I do a lot of healing work and energy work and things that involve helping people sort of come into a greater version of themselves or a good version of themselves and stuff. And that's sort of the crossover of this, of the podcast is that I feel to me that the food stuff and the weight stuff is in some ways a vehicle for us to get to that bigger issue, which is loving kindness and self-love and compassion. And that's the work I'm here to do and that I struggle with on a daily basis. And it's easier for me to coach other people in it than it is for me to do it myself.
Oh, totally. Classic.
Right? Yeah. Physician, heal thyself, as they say. Yeah, totally.
We teach best what we most need to learn, they say.
Yes. Who said that?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Richard Bach. It's from Illusions.
Oh, my God.
Yes. It's from Illusions. Exactly. We've talked about Illusions, I think, in our very first episode. But if you guys haven't read Richard Bach's Illusions, it's so great. You'll read it in a few hours. It's a quick read, but it's so deep and amazing. But yeah, we teach best what we need to learn is one of, I think, the quotes from there.
Yeah, nice. I'm so glad you know that because I reference it so much. I never know who to attribute it to. You know, the other thing that was really great about Prince, it's one of the things I heard someone say on the news, is that he really did such an amazing job about blending spirituality and sexuality in his music.
I feel like that is one of the most important combinations in my life. I think that's a really, really important and essential thing. And I hadn't actually thought about it in that way. But now that you say that, I obviously haven't studied him. Like I said, it's not like I'm an avid fan. But yeah, that's exactly what he did. And that is one of the reasons he was so amazing.
Like when I listen to his music, I literally feel like it's like pulsating down to my core. You know? Like gets you moving in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I have a dear friend, and I'm only going to say her first name, which is Melissa. And she, during a Prince night at Berlin is a club here in Chicago, a dance club, and there was a Prince night. They used to have it more often. I wish they had it more frequently. They don't have it anymore, but at a Prince... Oh, no. Oh, my God. It wasn't at Berlin. I beg your pardon. Well, first of all, Berlin should still have their Prince night, but that wasn't where this happened to Melissa. There's another band called Tributosaurus here in Chicago where they become another band. They're actually an amazing, amazing musical institution where they have one or two rehearsals and then they become a band. They become a tribute band, but a different tribute band each show. Like they're astounding musicians. So anyway, they did a Prince show. And during the Tributosaurus Prince show, my friend Melissa ruptured her belly button. Literally ruptured her belly button dancing. Yeah. For real.
Who knew you could rupture a belly button?
Nobody until Melissa did it. I'm sure people listening are like, well, I knew that. But no, I did not know that.
Was she doing a particular move?
No, she was.
To a song that caused it to rupture?
She was just doing a Prince move, baby.
Enough said.
Yeah, no, she was just doing normal Prince dancing and ruptured a belly button. Yeah. There you go. Here's to Melissa.
One of the other things that always stuck in my mind is, and I don't know if you went, I don't think you went with me. There were like 3 or 4 of us that went, but I think it was the Joffrey Ballet that had done an entire thing to Prince music. Do you remember this?
Rick. We've never talked about that. That's hilarious. I was living in Iowa City at the time because I was in graduate school. And for some bizarre reason, the Joffrey used to premiere their work at the dance center at the University of Iowa.
Oh, really?
I have no idea why they would do that. But one of the shows they premiered was a show called Billboards, which is what you're talking about. And that's where I first heard Sometimes It Snows in April. Which is one of my favorite Prince songs, was during that Joffrey Ballet that was set to Prince stuff. So we've never discussed it, but I saw it and it had a really big impact on my life.
Wow. Another one of those shows I saw, I remember afterwards just sitting and staring with my mouth open because it was such a right combination of artists coming together to create another artistic endeavor that was even more amazing than those 2 individual artists. It was just so beautiful, so stunning, and it's obvious it was a huge hit because that's become really trendy. They're always trying to match up whatever artists with, different mediums, and it doesn't always work. But that's one of the few times I thought, wow, it was really spectacular, really worked well.
Yeah, that was like 15 years ago, right? That was quite some time ago.
The date that came up, I think, is 93, 95, something like that, but I can't really find it.
It was before 95. It would have been 93, because like I said, it was when I was in grad school, which was 92 to 95. So it would have been somewhere in there.
The other thing I was thinking about is he has so many albums out, particularly the last 10 years, right? Because not a whole lot of his music was being played on what we would call traditional radio. So I bought so many of his albums, and one of my favorite albums is Rave, Unto the Joy Fantastic. Mm-hmm. If you haven't listened to it, you should. Just a lot of really great rhythms and really beautiful songs written.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Hey, did your parents or anyone in your life was there any drama about going to see Purple Rain because it was considered so risque?
Well, I actually went to see Purple Rain, the concert, not the movie.
Oh, really?
I saw the concert in high school. Before I appreciated the music, I was not what one might call cool in high school. I was a precocious theater geek. I know that's very shocking to everybody listening, but that is the case. But I had some friends. I think Christine Bowling. I think Christine and her family was one of the girls in my class who spearheaded the Purple Rain thing. So a bunch of us went to see the Purple Rain tour when I was probably a sophomore, maybe a junior. I don't know when it would have come through. I haven't checked the dates in high school. Before I knew it, and we were in some giant stadium, and my dad was like, okay, like it didn't occur to him to not let me go.
Because your dad was cool.
My dad was cool, and he wasn't going to not let me go to Dwayne. Thank you. Yeah, Daddy. And so we were in like some ridiculous nosebleed seats, essentially behind the stage, where he looked like a microscopic speck. And I don't remember there even being screens at that point. Like, it was crazy. Right. And my biggest memory of the concert was the woman in front of me, who was dressed in full Prince regalia, had this big giant crucifix with her, like I'm going to say 1.5 foot long crucifix, and had her crucifixy stuff on. And she must have been on some kind of drugs, and she ended up with her head lolling back onto my knees because it was a concert, and she was masturbating with this crucifix with her head in my lap. And I was like a sophomore in high school, and it was like my second concert, Rick Springfield having been my first. So I was like, what the fuck is going on? So that's my Purple Rain memory. I didn't get it. I didn't see the music. I didn't understand the music. I didn't appreciate the concert, but it was all about it being a concert and having that experience.
Wow. That's an experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing I could ever say could compete with that.
Well, I didn't mean it to be a contest. But so did you see the movie?
I did see the movie. And there was a lot of drama about me going to see the movie because it was considered so risque, and my mom didn't want me to, because it had gotten such bad press, because all anyone was ever talking about was that scene where he basically jacks off the guitar. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Playing really strongly. He's stroking the guitar. And something magical and white comes out of the guitar.
Makes me want to see it again. I think the movie holds up, actually.
Really?
Now I want to see it again. I think it does. I saw it not too long ago. My memory of that movie was, unlike your parents, I was staying in New York with my mom that summer. And I think I might have been working in the movie theater that summer. And I think it was playing, and there were smoking sections in the movie theater back then. And I used to smoke. Yeah. So I remember sitting by myself watching Purple Rain in the balcony, smoking cigarettes at whatever. I don't know. What would I have been? 15? I don't know exactly what the date is, but sort of silly.
1984, the movie came out.
Yeah, so 13 or 14, depending. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's my memory. Smoking cigarettes at a Lowe's, West 84th Street, Upper West Side, Manhattan movie theater.
Is that the one you worked at?
It is. It is.
I'm going to ask Kate, because this is one of my favorite stories about Kate, is this time that she worked in a movie theater. And it's really my favorite thing to have her tell about her experience.
Just because it was
concession stand.
The worst job I've ever had. He likes to hear me talk about the worst job I've ever had, which was indeed working in the concession stand at that very busy theater. in a very busy summer. There were a lot of Eddie Murphy movies. There was a lot of stuff. And it may be shocking to understand, but it can't have been that summer. It must have been later. You know what? I think it was later that I worked there. It was definitely the same theater, but I was in college when I worked there. I'm pretty sure. No, wait, was I? I don't remember. Anyway, but they didn't like me, is the point. They didn't like me. And so they made me work the really crappy shifts. And so I would have to be there at 8 in the morning and I would have to close at 2 in the morning. And it was just absolutely horrible. And the customers were dreadful and everything was gross. Butter. And I would eat these bags of popcorn with polyunsaturated soybean oil, which is what fake movie theater butter is made of, by the way. It's the worst thing you can ever eat. So really, you should avoid that if you can. And I would just eat bags and bags of this popcorn with this horrible, toxic fat laden onto it as I was hanging out during the day there trying to sell people $8 sodas.
And weren't you also slipping and sliding the entire time?
Yeah, because the whole floor was covered in this oil. And I would go home reeking of movie theater butter. And it was just the worst. And everyone was so rude to me. The customers and my colleagues just hated me. That's how that went.
I love that story. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for asking.
You know, one of the things that always struck me about Prince that I adored was that he was so politically active. Do you remember when he couldn't get out of his record contract and he put slave on his face, right?
Yeah.
Because he was really one of the early people to really sort of take up this whole battle that these poor musicians get locked into with these huge music conglomerations, and how it's hard for them to own their music whole outright. It's hard for them to make the money that they should be making, and, you know, particularly early on. And then the other thing I always loved is, you know, right after Katrina, I remember he went to Katrina, he just brought his spotlight down there. He did shows there. He also wrote songs about Katrina. And the same thing up here in Baltimore. There was that riot in Baltimore over the murder. I think his name's Freddie Gray, maybe. But that young kid that was shot and killed. And he just came up and he wrote songs about Baltimore. And he was always there for, I think, you know, his community, meaning I think the African-American community, and I think his artistic community. And I always loved that part about him. He was in the trenches. He really took it seriously, like his responsibility as an artist of where do you shine your light.
I can't say anything. That was really beautifully put, Rick.
Yeah, right? And ultimately, isn't that what we all want to do, right? We just want to figure out what's the best way for us to shine our individual light in a way that, you know, we were put here to do.
Yeah, so here's to shining our light and being in the trenches.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening and indulging us with this conversation. And we will be back to some somewhat regularly scheduled topics in future.
Regularly scheduled programming. So the big takeaway today is, you know what? Use death for what it is, right? A reminder to live more fully, to be more of who you are, and in this case, to really let what someone leaves behind inspire you.
Well, all right. And I just feel like an asshole saying this now, but please subscribe to our podcast. It's what I'm supposed to say next. It just feels horrible, but do please. And I know a lot of you guys do who are listening, but if you don't, if you accidentally just listen to this one, please subscribe to the whole thing. Even if you don't listen, it will so help us out on iTunes, on YouTube. You won't believe what I ate last night. On Facebook, follow our page. We post something every day that's either funny or interesting or something.
Awesome. And our next episode is really going to be on perception. I think this is our third attempt. We were going to do our episode on perception, but then it got bumped for our episode with Jason Robel.
Which was awesome.
And then we were going to do it again for this week, but then we're bumping it because we love Prince.
Which is not awesome. I mean, loving Prince is awesome, but his dying is obviously not awesome, but, you know, got to be topical.
So if all goes well, next week, join us. We will be talking about the perception of weight gain professionally, personally, and pop culturally.
And in case you're wondering, some people have asked us, we actually aim to release these pretty much every 2 weeks, approximately the 1st and the 15th of the month. So that's our schedule for doing these. And we are supported by donations from generous listeners such as yourself. So if you're interested, please visit us at patreon.com/you won't believe what I ate. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.